Hey YouTube, we are Index Music. Welcome back to our series on tonal harmony fundamentals. Today we're going to talk about the augmented sixth chord. Okay, so just like a couple quick prerequisites before we get into this. If you haven't checked out our videos on secondary dominants and half cadences, that would be really helpful when you delve into our augmented sixth chord. So check those out and then maybe come back and check out what we're talking about right now. Okay, so if you remember in our last video when we were talking about secondary dominants and their purpose and where they go, we were in this map and we were reviewing all our secondary dominants. In order to see the augmented sixth, we're going to have to jump all the way up to our complete version of the map, and there it is right there, wanting to go to the 5 of the key we're in. So let's actually change the view so we can see. There's the designation right there. German augmented sixth, GR plus sign sixth. So why is it called an augmented sixth chord? That's a great question. It's because of this interval within the chord that exists, this sixth. So we can see in our map where our German augmented sixth is in relationship to G, and also that its roots relationship to G is a half step above it. And the sixth is basically the F, or the sixth note of the A flat scale, raised a half step. And that desperately wants to go here, right? That F sharp wants to resolve to G just as badly as this A flat wants to resolve to the same G, or a different G, right? In a different octave. So what you're left with is this really strong sense of tension that resolves to our 5 chord. And this kind of recalibrates your ear to think of the 5 chord as now like a point of not tension, but resolution. And this is one of the defining characteristics of this augmented sixth chord and how it's used. It's often used to kind of maybe make the listener feel like the key has changed without even realizing that the key has changed. And then eventually it'll go back to the 1 chord, or maybe it doesn't. But the point is, this chord, this German sixth chord, or this German augmented sixth chord, I should say, has enough tension in it because of these half-step resolutions that it makes the arrival of G that much more significant, or that point of release, which used to be a tension, now a release. All right, so now that we've talked about what an augmented sixth chord is and where to find it on the map, let's talk about the 3 types of augmented sixth chords that you're likely to see. And that's the German, the French, and the Italian. Now, in our map, we only have the German, currently, the German augmented sixth chord, thus the designation GR. Later iterations of Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro, we're going to include the other 2, but let's break down why or what each one is, right? So our first type of augmented sixth chord, we'll talk about it, is the Italian augmented sixth chord. And this is where it sort of maybe helps to see this designation as this, A flat 7. So let's do that for now, right? So if you have an A flat 7, you have A flat C, E flat, and G flat. Those are the notes that make up that chord. So the Italian augmented sixth chord is when you have just the root, the 3rd, and the 7th. Our German version of that, what we're including in our map, has the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th. So all the tones are included. And then there's the French version of the augmented sixth chord, which incorporates a flat 5. All right? So you can hear all 3 of these chords want to go there, and for different reasons. So in all 3 instances, the German augmented sixth, the Italian augmented sixth, and the French augmented sixth, they all wanted to go to our case, in our case, the G chord. And they all created these different lines when doing so. And this is a great example as to why. You may have noticed earlier I was kind of hesitant to call it an A flat 7 chord, and this is why. Because it's an A flat 7 chord, or the fact that it's an A flat 7 chord is merely a consequence of all these really cool lines that resolve when you do these 2 chords. This sort of hammers home the point that harmony is more often historically a consequence of melody, or the lines that these composers were looking for when they were doing this stuff. Dee-dup, 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 dee-dup. All those lines are within that chord change, and that's really what makes it like it. So just one more quick thing before we go, and that's the augmented sixth chord's relationship to its 5 chord, if you want to call it that, right? Because you may remember in our video on sub-5s, so let's go back to the functional view of the map, that if you look at the German augmented sixth chord's position within its dominant region, it occupies the same exact place that in all other iterations of this circle, the circle of fifths. That is called a sub-5. It's a sub-5 there, it's a sub-5 there, and all these different places, except for right here, we're making the distinction that it's the German augmented sixth chord. And that's because of its approach to the 5 chord, and it making the arrival of that 5 chord, or to that 5 chord, by way of all that tension, that much more significant. Like, it's in it of itself is a half cadence, and this is kind of a really cool distinction between like the cadential 6/4 that we talked about earlier, or the Neapolitan 6, where it extends the tension. This German augmented sixth chord has so much tension in it that it makes the arrival of the 5 chord that much more significant. So it's one of the reasons we're kind of distinguishing why it's a German augmented sixth here, and not just a run-of-the-mill sub-5 as it is everywhere else. So I hope that cleared things up. Like we always say, we appreciate your comments, questions, and suggestions. If you want to stay up to date on our videos and the content that we talk about, click on the like or subscribe button. Thanks for watching.